Hi, guys, and welcome to another episode of Say More About That with LaToya the Therapist. Today, we are going to be talking about church hurt. So, I feel like, and this is a very personal and sensitive topic for me because I've experienced church hurt, but I feel like it's so important to discuss because it sheds light on a pain that people feel, but I feel like it's often overlooked. I feel like when people experience it, people are like, no, it's just you. You need to grow, you need to heal. But for many, the church is a symbol of safety, community, spiritual growth. And so when hurt happens in this context, the impact can be profound, affecting not only your relationship with the people at the church, but then also your faith, your sense of identity, how you relate to God. And I hope that's not the case for you all, because what I've had to learn is that the church is full of people, God is everywhere. But anyway, this topic resonates with people who have been alienated or wounded by a place that, we go there for guidance, we go there for support, and these people are supposed to be, I'm not going to say better than you, but more spiritually aware and higher in their growth of spirituality than you, right? So you go in and you're already at a disadvantage because you have this assumption, heavy on the word assumption, that these people are more spiritually inclined than you. And so I feel like addressing this topic just really creates space for healing and understanding. And I'm gonna be honest with y'all, it's really gonna kind of be like my personal diary, because I have healed from this. And one thing that I know is that sometimes we go through things so that we can help other people along with the same thing. And I'm healed now, I'm good now, but there was a time when I wasn't, and I couldn't find any answers or any help, or no one who could validate what I was going through, because everyone was kind of like, oh, well, it's you need to grow, whatever, pray on it, stay on it, or whatever they were saying. And somebody even told me the church is just a hospital for sick souls, and so don't go to the church looking for healthy people. I don't know, something weird like that. And I'm like, what? Especially when the people who hurt you are higher up in the church. I'm not talking about the people that's sitting in the pews with you. I'm talking about people higher up. It can be completely devastating. And so now that I'm in a better place to talk about it and handle questions and critiques and comments and stuff like that, I thought, hey, say more about church hurt. So let's get into it. If you have been here for any amount of time, you already know I'm about to start with a definition. So, what is church hurt? Church hurt refers to the emotional and spiritual pain caused by harmful experiences within a church setting. Duh, right? But these experiences can vary widely. They tend to fall into a few categories, and that looks like personal betrayal, abuse of doctrine, or misuse of authority. So, personal betrayal is when a trusted person of the church, specifically a pastor or leader, engages in actions like gossip, dishonesty, or personal attacks. Abusive doctrine is the misuse of religious teachings to manipulate, control, or shame individuals that can make people feel unworthy or condemned for questioning or kind of struggling with their faith. And then misuse of authority, when church leaders overstep boundaries or abuse their power, whether through exploitation, favoritism, or creating an oppressive environment. So if you're like me, you're like, oh my gosh, no, church, we're here to praise Jesus. We're about to talk about the goodness of the Lord. Why is any of this happening? Okay, I was shocked too, but it typically happens, from my research, it happens because there's flawed leadership, there's toxic church cultures, and then there's unmet expectations. So flawed leaderships, a lot of times we are looking at the people on the stage or in the positions or the people in the back, and we think that they have it all together, and they do not. And so leaders, like all people, have weaknesses and poor decision making, unchecked power specifically, and then personal insecurities can harm others. And that's what happens when you have a flawed leader. And if you've studied any kind of system, whether it be church, whether it be a corporation or a business or whatever, the ish rolls downhill. And so typically, if there's flawed leadership, then the people right underneath the leader, they're going to be flawed too. Stay with me, y'all, because I know some of y'all are like, nope, this would never happen in my church. But let's just keep trucking, okay? Toxic church culture. In some churches, there is a unhealthy environment that's kind of marked by judgment, legalism, favoritism, or an obsession with appearances or authenticity. So at the church that I used to attend specifically, there was this little situation called the discipleship class that I was kicked out of via text message, and then told, these are not your people. And that's why I was kicked out of the class. But to tie this into church culture, the culture at that church that I used to attend is like, okay, the people who go through this discipleship process, they get to get on stage, they're paraded in front of the congregation, and these people are looked at as having it together. They tithe, they show up, they are knowledgeable, and they can help you. So, to be a person who is following all the rules while watching other people not follow the rules and then be kicked out via text message and be told that these are not your people, I was like, oh, the devastation. But we can get into that later. I really want to help somebody else. And then finally, why does church hurt happen? Unmet expectations. A lot of times, and myself specifically, I saw church as like a sanctuary of love and support, and it's going to be fair, and these are my people, and this is community. And when the church fails to live up to these ideas, the disappointment, I feel like saying is deeply wounded is just not enough. I feel like it's core shaking devastation when the church does not lead up to that, especially when it's a church that builds its whole self on being there for the people, being a community, and doing life together and stuff like that. So I feel like when it happens, it's even more devastating because it's like, nah, like the Bible y'all had told me to read, this not what they doing in the Bible. What y'all got going? So it's touchy. What are some common reactions to church hurt? Okay. Most people tend to feel anger, confusion. They start to isolate, and then there's a loss of faith. I'm going to go through these, and then I'll be honest with you about how I felt. So anger is just a natural response to injustice or betrayal, or it's often directed at individuals, the church as an institution, or even God. And if you find yourself in that situation, I'm going to tell you this. I personally, even as a licensed clinician, I do not think anger is bad. I feel like anger is an emotion just like happiness, just like sadness, just like anything else. And no one ever says, oh, that person is too happy. The only reason people say you're too angry is because of your behavior. So if you get angry and you go beat somebody up, you have a beating people up problem. But people are going to say you have an anger problem. So if you find yourself angry, I just encourage you to direct the anger at the right place. God is not, I mean, he's everywhere, right? He's omnipresent, okay? But he wasn't in that room when they did that to you. And if he was, you know, he let it happen for a reason, whatever. My point is, he was not the person who did it to you. It was that person. It was that preacher. It was that secretary. It was that CFO of the church. It was that ministry leader. It was that deacon. It was that whomever. That's where you direct your anger. I'm not saying go beat these people up, because don't do that, because you're going to jail and I'm not going to get you out. What I am saying is that your anger is not to God. God didn't hurt you. These people hurt you. Now, depending on your belief system, he absolutely allowed you to be hurt. But I'm not here to get into the nuances of that. What I want to say is that make sure your anger is directed at the right person. Now, confusion. People start to question their belief. They start to question their worth. They start to question their faith. They start to question their place in the community, because when someone of power, someone of authority, tells you you are not worthy, you're not good enough, you are excommunicado, you are whatever, it's confusing, right? And then it leaves you feeling like, wow, this person that I believed in, this person that I followed, I can't not believe what they're saying now because I don't agree with it, because that's not appropriate, right? I have to believe them because I've always believed them. And so it leaves you in a place of confusion. And it also makes you isolate, because hurt people are going to withdraw. They're going to remove themselves from the church. They're going to want to protect themselves from further pain. And so it's like, I can't be here. And I'm good with that. Like, I'm never advocating for you to show up to a place that hurts you, but be somewhere. And I'm not saying you have to run back to church, but be somewhere. Be in community with someone. I'll just be honest and tell my personal story. Like, I have not been back to the place where I was hurt. I will not ever go back to that place where I was hurt. And I haven't been back to church. And I'm okay with that, because me and God, we got our own thing going on. And I know people going to be like, you got to go to church, community, empowering, showing up. I ain't there yet, if I'm honest. And it's cool. Like, I pray, I do my Bible app, I do my journaling. And honestly, I felt closer to God when I was doing my own personal Bible study without posting it on social media, without telling anybody outside of my house that I was doing it, than I ever did when I was in this fake ass class trying to be a discipleship to the people. Because I don't even know that we was being a discipleship to God, but that's neither here nor there. So isolate from the place that hurt you. I'm never going to encourage you to go back, but be somewhere. You could be in community with yourself. Also, on Sundays, I talk to my homegirl because she also got kicked out the class, but sis got a phone call. I did not. And so we talk and we fellowship. Another reaction. Y'all, I just went on a whole tangent, but stay with me. We're going somewhere. Another reaction to church hurt is a loss of faith. If you find yourself here, I am so deeply sorry for you. Like, I deeply want you to feel better, and I deeply want you to be able to reconnect with your higher power, whomever, whatever that is for you, because sometimes church hurt leads to like a disillusionment with organized religion, which side note, I already had a problem with organized religion because of hello, I'm black in America. But then to go to the place and be like, hey guys, I struggle here. And then they're like, ha ha ha, we got you. Open up, tell us your business, let us in. And then they threw me away. But anyway, I did not lose faith because I do not think that those people were of God. I do still struggle with organized religion because I feel like, I don't know, sometimes I feel like it can be oppressive. Yeah, but maybe that's a conversation for a different day. So if you have found yourself in a place where you have lost your faith, I'm going to encourage you to ground yourself in your belief system and your belief system in the higher power and not of humans. Humans going to let you down every time. Your higher power will not. Also, before I move on to how do we heal from this, how do we get past this, because I promise y'all there is so much life on the other side, I also want to speak to the disconnection of your community. I live in a state where I was not born. I am not from here. I did not go to school here. I did not go to college here. So my only community was the church, right? Because I'm new here. I'm not from here. I got to find people. We all like Jesus. Let's be each other's people, right? And so when you experience church hurt, one of the most immediate impacts to your life is the withdrawal from the community, because unfortunately everybody doesn't go with you. Everybody doesn't say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that happened to you. Girl, let's go to coffee. Let's go to lunch. A lot of people will say, well, it just wasn't your time. You're not healed. You need to move on from this, which is very invalidating. And it can also lead to like a feeling of being judged, excluded, or betrayed. And so I just want to speak to the person who may have just lost their community. Go find your people. Those weren't your people, because your people are going to stand by you and they'll correct you. They'll hold you accountable. They'll say, this is what you did wrong. This is what you could have done differently. But then they'll also still be there. The coffee dates won't stop. The double dates won't stop. The whatever y'all were doing before you decided to leave that institution will not stop. And so I don't think enough people are talking about why people stay in toxic churches, because a lot of people stay for the community. They're not staying for the message, because a lot of times, and I've heard people say, the messages ain't hitting like they used to. And so a lot of times people stay because their whole life is there. So let me give y'all an example of what I mean by their whole life. The person who sold my house, the person who was the mortgage person on my house, the person who told me this is the type of homeowners insurance you need, all them people went to the church. Matter of fact, it was one person. Catch. Every friend, minus my friend, y'all know my friend who I'm always talking about, who just got her house built. So she's my family. She is my friend. We are both from Tennessee. She's my family. So I'm not talking about her. She is family. But all of my friends from here were from that church. And so when I left the church, there was a huge disconnect. Again, the people who were my people went with me. And I don't necessarily mean they left the church. I just mean like we still meet up, we still have conversations, we still talk, we still go to the gym, blah, 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 whatever we're still doing. But a lot of times, the biggest thing that people experience when they have to leave their church is the loss of community, because there will always be people who stay. There will be people who side with the institution of the church, i.e. the pastor, even though they were not involved in the conversations. And I think that is very hurtful and very detrimental, and people really shouldn't be like that. I get it, like that's your church, you want to stay there, cool, let's agree to disagree, let's just not ever talk about it. But to cut someone off because they no longer worship at a place where you worship is giving cult to me, but that's another topic for a different day. And of course, I'm not going to tell you all my business and tell you all these definitions without giving you some tools to walk away from, right? So, healing, how do we heal from church hurt? We've discussed it. We've talked about it. I've shared very briefly what happened to me. Y'all, I could have a whole episode on the details, but we're not here for that. So, how do you heal from this? Healing from church hurt is deeply personal, and it's challenging, honestly. Like, it involves acknowledging your pain, processing your emotions, and then like taking intentional steps toward spiritual and emotional restoration. There's no easy way to do this, and it's gonna look different for everybody. But what I have found to be the most helpful is this: acknowledge your hurt. Stop pretending like your feelings not hurt. Stop acting like when you didn't get that text message to kick you out that class that you was okay, because you were not. Stop pretending that when the pastor did something to you inappropriate or gaslit you in a meeting, or whatever happened to you when that deacon said that you weren't enough, or whatever happened, stop pretending that it did not hurt your feelings, because it did. You cannot heal what you cannot speak. And so validate your feelings. Recognize that your pain is real, it's significant, and you do not have to downplay or dismiss your experience because it happened at church. And I think that's where people get stuck. They're like, oh, it's church. And I understand not a lot of people are going to believe you. Everyone doesn't think that church hurt exists, but the thing is, it does. And so validate your own feelings, acknowledge your own hurt, and then name the source. Identify what caused the hurt. Was there a specific person, a specific group, a systemic issue? What specifically hurt your feelings? So validate your feelings and then name the source. That's where you got to start. So after that, you're going to seek support. So this could be trusted friends. It could be a therapist. It could be a support group. You have to have somewhere to put your feelings, and sometimes a journal just isn't enough. And so I'm going to always encourage you to seek support. The tricky part is if you're like me and your entire world of friends comes from the church, it can be very difficult. So I'm going to encourage you to seek support. And if you have to get professional help, get professional help. Because I think because it happens at church and you're so floored, like, how is this a reality TV show playing out in the house of the Lord? I think it can be difficult to process your emotions. So I'm going to always encourage you to seek support. See a therapist if you need to. Call that lady, like in real life. And then set boundaries. Y'all know I love the B word. I'm always going to throw the B word in here. But set boundaries. If you have to stay at the same church, with the same people that hurt you, just establish clear boundaries to protect yourself, protect your mental health, protect yourself moving forward. You can watch or listen to the episode on boundaries for like actual steps on how to set the boundaries, but definitely set boundaries. I also think step away temporarily or permanently in my case, because after I left a meeting where I was being gaslit by the leadership, I was like, nah, I'll never have to come here again. So I would encourage you to set boundaries. That was the boundary that I set for myself. That may not be your boundary. Your boundary may be, okay, I'm going to go, but I'm not going to be in this group. I'm not going to take this class. I'm not going to stay late, like whatever. But set the boundary for yourself on how you are going to move forward and how you are going to take care of yourself. And then also, you got to figure out your faith for you. So reframe your faith. Separate God from people. And I know it's so hard, y'all. I get it. It's so hard because you go to church, you see this person, they're supposed to represent God. You see these people and they're like, oh, I'm holy. I've been saved this long and I do this and da-da-da. And they kind of set themselves apart for you. I personally think that's all by design, but that's neither here nor there. But you have to learn how to separate God from people. It was individuals at the church that hurt you. The church and their systems may be flawed, but this is not a direct reflection of God. Just because somebody says it's a church, it don't mean God is in there. Now, God could have been there. He could have been like, okay, I don't like this no more. He could have bounced. I don't know. I'm not God. I do not know. But what I do know is you have to learn how to separate God from people. You also have to deepen your faith and deepen your spirituality on your own. I think sometimes we think we need a preacher or a mentor or a deacon or a whoever to teach us how to get closer to God, and you don't need that. Learn who your higher power is for yourself, because then can't nobody play with you. Can't nobody say, can't nobody start reading scriptures making you feel like you're an infant in your spirituality, when really they just repeating something somebody else told them. So I'm going to encourage you to learn who your higher power is for yourself, so that you can start to move forward and deepen your relationship with him, her, they, them, so that you are never in this situation again. Okay? Finally, and this is tricky. Super tricky. You have to forgive. You have to forgive, but you have to forgive on your own terms. Forgiveness is a process. Forgiving people who hurt you, y'all already know what I'm going to say. Forgiveness does not mean access. I can forgive you. I can want you to do well. I can no longer be holding ill feelings to the situation, and I can still not want you in my life. That's my personal definition of forgiving. You'll have to work on your own. Take the time to work through forgiveness at your own pace, and there's no pressure. You don't have to force it. They didn't have no pressure when they was hurting your feelings, so you don't have to have pressure around forgiving them. And then even if you forgive them, you don't have to have pressure around giving them access to you again. People who hurt you, in my mind, don't need access to you, especially people who are unwilling to look at themselves, unwilling to look in the mirror, and unwilling to be held accountable. Especially people who preach and practice accountability, even at the risk of losing a relationship, but when they really didn't care about the relationship anyway. So, forgive these people at your pace, in your process, so that you are not bound to that. But that doesn't mean that they have access to you. I'm never going to say that. And then also, just be patient with yourself. It's a process, right? Like, I just remember feeling like, how did I get here? How did I let this happen to me? Oh my gosh, I'm usually so much more careful with me. How did this happen? It happened. And there was a lesson to be learned. And there were some things about me that I needed to shape, mold, and do differently. But there were also some things about me that I needed to lean into and stop running away from. And so while it hurt going through it, I absolutely appreciate the process. Will I ever go to that church again? Absolutely TF not. But I am so grateful for what I learned there, for the people that I met there, for the positive impact that was had on my household, not the negative catch. And so, yeah. That's what I'm going to encourage you all to do. If you are experiencing church hurt, don't be silent. Don't feel like you have to be silent. And don't feel like you don't matter, because you absolutely do. If you need some additional support, y'all always know where to find me. Hop in my email, hop in my DMs, whatever. I'm down to talk. I'm down to help you however I can, because church hurt is a very wild ride. And I'm happy to finally be off the roller coaster and finally be in a place where I can actually talk about it, articulate it, and, help somebody else in the process. So if you have made it this far, oh my gosh, what a long episode. We've never been here this long. I guess I had a lot to say. So if you made it this far, thank you so much. I sincerely appreciate you. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend. Make sure you share, do all the things, because numbers matter in this space. I am so thankful that each and every one of you have decided to tune in and be here with me. I could never thank you enough for that. If you need anything, feel free to reach out. And also, please be sure to be kind to others, because we all just out here living.